Hi, welcome to Atlassian Tech TV. My name's Chris Mountford, and I take you inside Atlassian to show you how we make software. My guest this episode is Symphony Wong from the Atlassian purchasing team. Following our regular format, this is a two-part interview. Symphony is a software developer with a keen eye for design, or is she a designer who can also code? One of the things Symphony and I chat about is how a mutually exclusive definition between these two roles can sometimes be unhelpful, creating artificial boundaries and potential barriers to collaboration. Symphony gives us her take on what is important in user interface development, such as making sure the various parts of the UI don't steal the spotlight from each other. Symph also tells us about her journey, starting as a graduate developer, going through Atlassian's famous Hack House program. She tells us what it was like the following year, being selected to be a mentor for Hack House, helping the next batch of grads seize the opportunity and not get overwhelmed by the challenge of working at Atlassian. Hello, welcome again to Atlassian Tech TV, and today I have with me Symphony Wong,
Hi.
Developer on the
Purchasing team.
Mm-hmm. All right, welcome to Atlassian Tech TV.
Thank you.
One question I want to ask you, I ask most people, everyone I think, who I interview in this,
Okay.
How did you get into software? How did you get into computer programming?
Okay, it's really by accident actually. And as I was at high school, I've always liked playing with computers, but I didn't do programming or anything. It was just, I would look at the HTML sources for web pages and things like that and try to figure out how things work. So as I was choosing my courses for uni, I was like, oh, I like computer. I like trying to figure out how things work. Engineering sounds like a way to go. And actually the other side of it was I also really liked, being creative and stuff. So I did a double degree with digital media, and I got into the lecture. I remember the first tutorial we had to use, we had to set up our accounts using the terminal, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. I've never used the terminal before. And
this is for digital media?
No, this is computer science.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, the double degree is computer science and digital media.
Makes sense.
And I ended up really liking it. Yeah.
So you were drawn to the command line, was it?
But also you can make the computer do whatever you tell it to. Yeah, and sort of the magic behind this, from the outside it just looks like, how is the computer doing this? You have no idea. Sometimes you don't even think about it, right? If the piece of software is really well written and it just works the way you expect it, it's so well done that you don't even notice it, but there's all these magic that goes behind it, and it's it's satisfying to be the one crafting that.
I feel exactly the same way about it. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was there was no HTML for me to peek at, but when I was learning it when I was a little kid, but I had that same feeling of, oh, this is magic. I can make anything I want. If I can imagine it and I know how to build it, then I can make it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Pretty cool.
And so, tell me about your story at Atlassian. You started, what is it, a year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, a year and a couple of months ago. At the beginning of 2014, I joined Atlassian as a graduate developer.
Right.
So I went through the grad program, went through Hack House and
Hack
the boot
House.
camp.
Let me stop right there. Tell us about Hack House.
Okay. Hack House was the first week ever at Atlassian. They sent all the graduates to this holiday house somewhere. I know, it's pretty good. It's pretty crazy. And you live together for a week and you get to know each other really well. And you also go through some workshops and team building activities. Right. But the highlight is it ramps up to the end of the week on Thursday, where it's a ship it day. And yeah.
Ship it.
Ship it, if you weren't familiar, is this thing that happens in Atlassian quarterly, where you get 24 hours. It's kind of like a hackathon, and you just build whatever idea you have and get a project done. So for Hack House, we had a graduate version of that, like the fourth day of starting at Atlassian. You're just given all of the source code, and there are mentors there to help you and so on. But you're pretty much free to do whatever, implement whatever idea that comes into your head. and you just go at it on Thursday, and then on Friday, which is the 5th day of you starting at Atlassian, you come back to the Sydney office and you showcase it to everyone. And
whole company.
I know. I remember when we sat down at the front of the room, like doing last minute preparations, and then when the presentation actually started, you stand up and you turn around. There's like 200 people in the hall. Wow, this is not intimidating at all. But it was a really good experience. And this year, like watching this year's graduates doing their presentation, it was just amazing how, with so little time, with like 4 days of getting acquainted with the company and our products, like what good ideas they actually managed to implement, and with like elegant solutions as well sometimes.
Yeah. So they demoed. Actually, that's because you were a mentor for that.
For this year's Hackhouse, yes.
So you went from participant
last year
to a mentor, and so that's a role where you're a part of it.
Yeah.
You know, you're helping them, and so I guess you get to see them ramp up.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, I was very impressed this year with the quality of the sort of presentation skills, the polish of the, you know, the sort of stagecraft. I don't know if we had a couple of people in the CS review or something, people who could handle a mic and didn't seem intimidated at all in front of a big crowd of, a crowd of probably double the size of the year before, who were, all professionals in that field, and I imagine it's quite daunting.
Like senior developers, managers, and product managers as well. For my year, there was a huge emphasis on presentation. Lots of tips on how to polish it up, and they always tell us to frame it in the way of, here is like present the problem that you're actually trying to solve, as opposed to here's a cool thing that I did because I thought it was cool. Make sure that, and this is not just for the presentation, but also for as you are developing your idea and trying to develop a solution, trying to make sure that it's actually something that would solve a problem for someone. That's the way we try to frame our presentation around. And I think this year that really came through as well. I mean, we had Chris Keel as one of the mentors, and he's
great.
Yeah, he's like got so much experience under his belt in terms of ship it.
He's won quite a few years actually. He's won at least 2, I think.
Oh, more than that, I'm sure. I feel like there's more.
His legend is growing.
I feel like even when I'm here, he's won at least twice. So before that, there was probably more. Anyway.
So tell us about your regular work in purchasing. What's the purchasing team? What sort of stuff are you working on?
Yep. So the purchasing team is a platform team as opposed to a product team in that we the stuff we make isn't the product that people buy. In fact, we sort of manage and support the underlying purchasing and billing system. So essentially, we allow customers to give us money.
Right. Sounds important.
So if our systems go down, no revenue for the company.
Right. So he's drawing a distinction there between a product team where you're building software that is sold. People use that and they report bugs against it, and the people who are using it and our customers are the ones who are sort of we're interacting with. Versus a platform, which is probably like actually there's probably the greatest number of software developers work inside a company building parts of the systems that company relies on for their operations. And so have you worked on a product team?
Yes, when I first joined Atlassian, I was part of Jira development team. So that transition was quite eye-opening. In that joining a platform team was like suddenly this new world opens up of, wow, all these teams that I didn't really know, I've heard of them, I didn't really know what they do beforehand, and you realize so many systems go underneath or alongside supporting this product that we sell. It's a lot of effort goes into making everything move together smoothly. And again, they're almost invisible, right? Really, unless something goes wrong, that's when it becomes really noticeable. But
like plumbing, the plumbing in your house works, and if you have to know about it, it must mean there's a big problem going on.
Yes, but plumbing is very important, and Yeah.
No, it's definitely important. So do you think there's a difference in how the software is made? I mean, a product team versus a platform team. Are there any significant distinctions you could outline there, or is it just the same process?
There are similarity and differences. Let me think a bit about this one.
Well, sometimes there's a difference between two teams that are the same in this respect. I've worked on a couple of different teams, and sometimes I think there's a sort of distinction between the Jira team and the Confluence team and the Bamboo team and the various different product teams, and part of that's just because teams get to define their own process.
Yes. So when I moved across, what actually happened was my whole team moved from Jira to purchasing, and I think they did that on purpose, they tried to keep the team together so that because we already had our own established processes that we were comfortable with and we worked well with each other. So we kind of just moved that across to purchasing. I mean, the milestones would be different. The actual work that we're trying to do obviously is very different. But the sort of processes that go around that, we didn't change it that much because it had just worked well. It's just like when you asked that question, I was like, yes and no. It's like the work we do is very different and we're interacting with many different moving parts. But the processes that we use, we kind of carried over and it still works pretty well for us. Yeah.
Cool. All right. And so what are the sort of conspicuous process elements that you're using on the team that you think you rely on in that team?
Okay. So this is from a developer's point of view. I'm sure it would be very different if it were from a product manager.
I will be interviewing product managers. I'll get their point of view.
But where to start? Okay, let's start with day-to-day. Every day I come in, our team would get together and have a stand-up meeting. It's super quick, 5 to 10 minutes. You're standing up and you talk about what you did yesterday, what you aim to do today, and if there are any obstacles in the way, kind of thing. My team in particular also does a weekly catch-up, which is also we try to keep everything as lightweight as possible. So the weekly catch-up is just a sync up on how we're tracking against our milestones, and for each task that is in progress, just give a quick update on where things are, and we'd also discuss any upcoming events or what's the next milestone or what are things that we should watch out for in the future. Those are the two sort of main regular ones. We also have we try to have a retrospective every month or every 2 months.
And is that your iteration length? Do you have sprints?
We don't really do sprints.
So do you follow any recognizable agile sort of brands? Is it Kanban? We limit the work in progress?
It's like a Kanban Scrum, the stripped down version of a mix of the both. Like I said, we try we're very intentional about keeping the processes as lightweight as possible. So in fact, in the recent retro, we even sort of went out of our way to make sure we didn't follow the Scrum process just for the sake of following a process.
Right.
We kind of just wanted to, whatever works, but in the least amount of overhead possible.
I mean, whatever works, that sounds good. And
we have regular retrospectives to make sure, to sort of get everyone's opinion and make sure that, hey, whatever we're doing is actually working, and if not, we'll make slight tweaks to our processes.
Right.
And so on,
So you're constantly changing the way you do what you do.
In fact, in the most recent retrospective, we sort of sat down and said, what we've been doing, it has worked really well for us in the past. It's been a little while now, and maybe we could change it up a little bit just to, give it some fresh air. And give a little bit more structure to our weekly catch-up meetings. Right. So that's only been 2-3 weeks at the moment, and that's worked well so far. Right. So it's definitely flexible.
And how many on the team?
We have 4 developers, 1 team lead, and a product manager, and a designer, and the QA as well.
All right.
Yeah.
So multidisciplinary team.
Yeah. The product manager and the QA, they are sort of spread between teams as well. They don't work. Yeah, they work across different teams, and which is actually quite good because it brings different perspectives into the work that we do as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so tell us about the sort of technical aspects of I think of it as a product. I think of the software product that you're creating. It's purchasing. You've got users. The users are from the general public.
Yeah, it's definitely still a product. Not one that we sell, but it's got users.
So what kind of application? Is it just a single application where it's a single deployable app? It's a web app, right?
There are different components to it.
Yeah.
Yep. So we make I suppose the purchasing portal. So when people come into the Atlassian website, it's all very self-service, right? You don't have to ring up a sales team. You don't have to sign any contracts. Mostly you just go to a website and click some things and then put in your credit card details, and then we tell you your instance is ready, or like here's a license key. And yeah, very self-service. So that is a main component that my team takes care of.
Right.
We call it the shopping cart.
Yeah. Shopping cart rings a bell.
Yep. So that actually is the most customer-facing system module that we have. Yeah, but other than that, we also take care of the underlying billing system in our cloud accounts. So, for example, if you sign up for Jira in the cloud, you can opt in for like automatic renewal or automatic billing, where we just send you the invoice every month. And under the hood, we calculate like how many users you have, and like what kind of tier that should fall under, what kind of add-ons you have, and all that. So there's
and it's billing.
Yeah, and we generate the invoice and we send it to you, and then if you pay us, that's all that underlying system my team takes care of as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And so, what kind of application is it? So those components are running their
web apps.
They're web apps. And are they Java apps?
So the shopping cart is JavaScript. Actually, it's all client. There's no back end to it. It just talks via REST to our HAM stands for hosted accounts management system. Right. Yeah. So
that's where customers have their accounts, and they own things, and they've got multiple products or one product or.
Yep. So that big monolith is written in Java.
Right. And that's an existing system.
Yes.
Right. And so your team has been working on a front end for that, and do you also work with the back end?
Yes. Right. So, like I said, HAMS is mostly written in Java, and we have like a REST resource layer on top of it, where a different system would interact with it. And in fact, lots of different systems interact with HAMS, not just the
internal systems.
Yes, internal systems. Not just the shopping cart, but also like user management. So, My Atlassian, which is the sort of customer portal where you go in to look at things you've purchased in the past, and where you go to retrieve your license keys. That also talks to this.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
And are there any other technologies, sort of significant technologies amongst these components, or is it that sort of modern web app with JavaScript front end talking REST to a server-side application, in this case Java?
Yeah.
Are there sort of other, I mean, there are other components, but are they like that, or are there any different ones?
We've been trying out Groovy for testing.
Yeah.
Not for production code, but for test code.
So it's a JVM language?
Yeah. Yes, but it's worked out pretty well in that it's a little bit more dynamic than Java, and it gives you a bit of flexibility when you're testing things, and like sort of lots of shorthands as well, where you sort of reducing the amount of boilerplate that you're adding, which in test code there's a lot of.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always thought Groovy could be very effective in testing in particular. I've played with it quite a lot.
Yeah?
And, I like it. It's just, it's very close to Java, but it's also quite like JavaScript. I'd say I probably prefer it to JavaScript.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't really do it on a client. So if you want to do a web app and you want to have client-side code, JavaScript is got a monopoly, really.
Yes, pretty much. I think, like you said, it's still a JVM based language, so it's really nice in that I didn't really know Groovy until I joined purchasing, and I could still get by okay with my existing Java skills, and then slowly sort of pick up all the tricks that you can do in Groovy. Right. It's like, hey, this is really cool. I just learned this new feature in this language.
Functional programming.
Yeah.
Cool. And I wanted to ask you a bit more about your. You mentioned to me when we were chatting earlier about some side projects. You got any side projects you can discuss? Because this is something that we, I guess, we're encouraged to do as a part of sort of self-driven learning and exploration.
Yeah.
To evaluate new technologies, to try things out, and we've got these regular Ship It hackathons. So one's coming up.
Yes, one is coming out. I do have something planned for that, actually.
Oh, tell us about that. You don't want to spill the beans.
It's okay. I can talk about it. It's actually still it's still purchasing related. It's still related to my team, but it's something that's not on the roadmap anywhere, and it's something that Ship It or 20% time is really good in that it's sort of the company's way of saying you probably have lots of cool ideas and lots of ideas of how to make things better. Yeah. Here's some time to go ahead and do it. So I mentioned earlier that I have an interest in design and sort of particularly in human-computer interaction as well. So user interface design and that kind of stuff. If I didn't end up a developer, I think I would have ended up a designer.
That's a cool combo.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it's the overlap between design and development is definitely growing. And traditionally you sort of used to think, these two disciplines don't really have much in common, right? Yeah, you think that they think in really different ways. One's really logical and the other one's free flow and creative. But actually it's so important that we learn how to communicate with each other, and there's so much that so much good things can happen, so much magic happens in that sort of overlapping area. Which I actually really like how designers and developers are quite involved in Atlassian, in that my team is this sort of this small multidisciplinary, like you said, autonomous little group where we do have a designer who can give us that kind of input and perspective from the other side. And when I am doing development and when I'm doing development and I have some sort of design problem that I need to solve, I can always talk to the designer and even learn a lot from them and gain some design skills myself as well.
Yeah, that's actually. I mean, I think this is a really interesting topic.
Yeah.
I agree with you about the way it's perceived, that design is creative and that coding is more logical or mathematical or something, and that when someone says, even the word design, it implies a visual design or industrial design, and the configuration of shapes and colours and textures and things.
So much broader than that.
But design is sort of creating a solution as well.
Yeah.
And you can have the design of a system.
Yes, exactly. You can say that the work we do as software developers or engineer is design. You are designing a system and you are designing a solution to a problem. It may or may not be visual.
Right. But there's also I've noticed, I'm not sure if you're into this stuff, but I've noticed there's a sort of, I guess there's a long legacy of this, the idea of art code, using code or using programming as a medium of creative and artistic expression, creative coding, and
I think there's a lot of exploratory work there, and some of it's quite beautiful and quite sort of interesting.
Let's look at Vivid.
Vivid Festival in Sydney.
Yes.
It's I mean, I think it's world famous now, but there's so much of that, isn't there?
Like a lot of the sort of craft that makes that magic happen is like programming.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of installations where they they have sort of projections or whatever, and they map them onto the physical world, say it's onto a building.
Yeah.
And then there was one actually at Vivid last year where you could, I think it was interactive, where you can control how much stuff is happening, and these would all be particles, and the particles would be sort of dribbling down the building, and they'd hit the windows and they'd bounce off them, and so the building was being projected upon, and there was no interaction with the physical building, but the software had been designed.
You have to put the boundary into the software, and the particle has to know where to bounce off.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So you say you're into design and programming. So how do these two things come together in your side projects, or in your apart from being able to consult with the designer, maybe you have a closer communication? Is there anything that you're doing in your job as a developer where your design sense is is a benefit?
Even in just like everyday development, for example, the shopping cart I was talking about earlier is this customer facing thing. So there's like somewhere along the line there's going to be an opportunity to actually, you have to make decisions on what the user interface looks like. That's where actually I find sort of my other degree comes into play a lot more, where I can make sort of informed choices on where things would like how certain user paths would present themselves to the user.
What makes sense? How can it, as you were saying before, how can it become invisible where you don't notice it anymore? It's just, of course, I'm just using this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can make something that works, that has an amazing algorithm behind it, the most efficient thing ever. But if the user interface is sort of not intuitive and people don't know how to use it, or there's like a steep learning curve, then it's not going to get used that much. And people can't realize the sort of value behind the thing that you've built unless you have a good interface, right? Yeah.
Would you say that? It seems to me that the consumer internet and consumer software, so Apple is a perfect example of this sort of idea where they're very successful in the consumer space especially, and where maybe computer companies that have been dominant in the past have focused on business, say, or at least that's the way that seems. They haven't necessarily had that reputation for being as humane or at being as well designed. Maybe at perfectly functional and acceptable, but when you compare a bank ATM and the usability of that thing versus maybe a new iPhone or I don't know, the Apple Watch or something, those are things that people feel more emotional connection to because of the way they're designed. So presumably they're more enjoyable, if not more effective as well.
Do you
think? What do you think? How do you see that?
I remember at uni there was this one course where we pretty much like talked about this and like wrote essays about interactivity and like form versus function and all that. I think it's definitely a balance between the two. I mean, you can't be all about emotions and all about a beautiful interface, but
then that's art. Well, I don't know what's art, but you know what I mean.
What is art?
but if it's not an engineering solution to a problem you've been presented with, then it's maybe it's self-expression or something. But so I guess there's the line. Like that's when that's the balance you're talking about, isn't it?
That's a wrap for another episode of Atlassian Tech TV. Please subscribe and follow us on Twitter. We've also got tons of stuff on our blog at developer.atlassian.com.